What's up, guys? Welcome to Bleav in Rams, part of the Bleav Network. Erin Coscarelli back with you. Be sure to subscribe, comment, rate, follow this podcast. You can also catch us on Bleav TV and follow us on all the socials. We've got a lot to get to, ladies and gentlemen. The Rams are 2-0. They're coming off that win against the Chargers Saturday, a couple of weeks before the start of the 2024 regular season. But this is awesome. LA is concluding their preseason with a big game, a very fun game, against the Houston Texans. Kickoff is Saturday. It is at NRG Stadium. It is scheduled for 10 a.m. Pacific time. The two teams will also have a joint practice Thursday, which is today. And nobody to break down all the storylines, things to watch for than the man, the myth, the legend. He is game day host of the Houston Texans. He is also co-host of Bleav in Texans podcast. He's a retired NFL vet. He's not just played with the Texans, but you've also played with the Jags, the Bucks, your name. I am so stoked to have you, Cecil Shorts III. Thank you for joining us today.
Erin, you are the best. That intro was amazing. I'm excited to be on here, so thank you.
Yeah. We've got a lot to get to. First and foremost, though, it must be really fun to get to see game day action from your point of view now as the game day host. Tell us a little bit, how did you get into that? You've been doing it for 4 years now? Is that right?
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. They offered me this job 4 years ago, and at first I'm like, whoa, what is that? Why are you doing that? What does that even mean? And I'm like, okay, let me give it a try. And I fell in love with it. It's a chance for me to be close to the game, close to the fans. I get to entertain the crowd. And nowadays, like 80,000 packed in there because the Texans are pretty good, right? So we get to watch the game up close, do a little commentary from the sideline, then also have fun with the fans, give them some memorable moments that they get to come down. So it's a lot of fun.
I mean, I have to imagine. When did you hang it up? When did you retire?
2017.
Okay. That sounds like the perfect post-retirement job. You're still so close to the game. Yeah. You're still so relevant. You're still so enmeshed with the fans. Yeah. Was it a no-brainer for you? Because, I mean, that's a big deal to be able to be in front of, like you said, 80,000 fans every single Sunday. Obviously, when they're home, I would imagine I'd feel a little nervous about it. But for you, it's a no-brainer.
You know what? It wasn't a no-brainer because I felt weird about doing it. I'm like, I don't know if I belong. I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I can actually go out there and speak and talk in front of 80,000 people consistently at every home game, right? But they saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, right? That's what coaches do. That's what your friends do. That's people supposed to bring something out of you, right? So I'm grateful for that, and it's been amazing. I absolutely love it. The first 3 or 4 games, I'm sitting there like, oh, it's really on the crowd. I'm on the big screen because it's different than playing. It's totally different than playing, right? But now it's just smooth sailing. It's just like talking to a friend, focusing on them. So it's a really good time. Really enjoy it. I can talk about the game and have fun with the fans. It's hard to beat it.
Is it the same adrenaline as game day for you?
Yes. I figured out a routine for myself. So while both teams are on the field warming up, I do my laps around the field, kind of practicing what I want to say, going through stuff. We get there early on game day, about 7:30. Kickoff's at noon. So we get there about 5 hours, 6 hours early. It's to focus and practice on what we're going to do. So it definitely feels like a same adrenaline, same rush I get just not playing games.
Yeah, and I really respect athletes that enter the broadcast space. It is not easy. You mentioned not feeling like you belong. Myself as a broadcaster, especially covering the NFL, there's certain elements of imposter syndrome. I respect the athlete and the ability to be able to translate the game that is its own language, and to be able to communicate it to fans. And one of the guys that I'm really excited to see this season in the booth is Tom Brady. And the reason why I'm bringing him up is because he recently said something very interesting. I don't know if you caught him. He said at Fanatics Fest, he sat down with Stephen A. Smith. I don't know if you caught that, but he said something interesting. He said the team's best chance to beat the Chiefs. He mentioned he thought the Niners and the Packers, but he also said the Rams are going to be a very good team this year, a very good offense, a very good receiving core. And he was there at SoFi for their week 1 preseason game. So he got to see the team in person. My question for you as a former wide receiver, what do you make of this wide receiver core in Los Angeles? Because there's a lot of anticipation. There's a new rookie wide receiver in Jordan Whittington who's dominated the preseason. How do you rank Los Angeles wide receiver core at the moment?
Honestly, I think they'll be in the top 5. You look at somebody like Cooper Kupp, who's been dominant over the years, even though he's battled some injuries. He's somebody that's been consistent year in and year out. Puka came on the scene last year. I don't care what nobody says.
Mm-hmm.
You did not know he was going to have the year that he had. And he is just the humblest guy, it seems like. It's like an awesome guy to talk to, relate to on the field. It seems like it's a good mesh between Cooper and Puka. Then you add the rookie. Then you add some veterans in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they could be top 5, but Cooper got to stay healthy. Puka got to stay healthy. Matthew's going to do what Matthew does. He's one of the top. To me, he's top 4, and he's not number 4 when it comes to quarterbacks in the league. That's just me. I'm a fan of Matthew Stafford. He been underlooked in Detroit. Came to the Rams, won a Super Bowl, but people are like, oh, they had a good team. No, he was fantastic. He has legit been good since Detroit. He's been overlooked. So for me, he's one of the better quarterbacks in the game. When you have that, he's going to help his guys get open. And then McVay's schemes, oh my gosh, the motions, the adjustments, I love the squeeze formations and just the crossing routes, all the stuff that he can come up with, the creative stuff. He finds ways to get these guys open. So it's no surprise to me another rookie is coming in. It seems like it's a receiver-friendly offense. If a rookie can come in and make an impact, and then another rookie come in and is doing the same thing, that's not by accident, right? It's a receiver-friendly type of offense. On top of that, you got Sean McVay and a great quarterback throwing the ball.
Yeah, I mean, if like you said, if guys stay healthy, they've struggled to stay healthy this preseason. They've had some injuries on the offensive line, some in the secondary. Even Puka has an issue. I want to call it, a bursa sack, something too technical for me to know. But, he's been obviously not playing in the preseason. McVay historically doesn't start his starters during the preseason. But we've gotten some great looks from Whittington, who also, he leads the NFL in preseason receptions, selected in the 6th round of the draft. I want to get to Texans and compare them, but why do you think McVay and company, they do such a great job in the draft? What is it? How do they see it?
They find guys that fit their system. They have an outlook of what they know exactly what they're looking for. This type of receiver, this type of playmaker. In their offense in college, what did they do and what did they do well? What is their strengths, right? Do they run these type of routes well? Because these are the type of routes that we're going to run here with this offense, right? Are they a smart player? Can they be physical? Can they block, right? So it just depends on what he's looking for, but he is dialed in on a certain type of guy. And they do a darn good job of figuring out who that guy is. And if it's in the 6th or the 5th round, whatever the case may be, they draft them and it's been working out in their favor.
Yeah. I mean, you have Kyren Williams, a lot of these guys, late round draft picks, and they've certainly delivered. So I'm excited to see what the offense is going to look like. We'll get to the defense in a moment because they almost kind of have to overcompensate for what they're missing on defense. But they're going up in preseason, and it's a preseason game. Not a lot of, you can't really say what teams are going to look like, especially when it comes to what Sean McVay tends to do during the preseason. How would you compare the 2 wide receiver core? I mean, you have obviously a huge pickup this offseason with Stephon Diggs. How would you compare the 2 wide receiver cores?
That's a good question. I think you have more proven guys in the Texans locker room, even with Tank being a rookie last year. He had 745 plus yards. He was on his way to 1,000 yards before he got hurt. There was still 5 or 6 games left, and he ended up with like 740 and some change. Tank is an explosive guy. He's a playmaker, the Deshaun Jackson type of guy. And then, of course, if you add Stephon Diggs to the mix with Nico Collins, who had a breakout year, 1,200 yards, Stephon is the most durable receiver in the last decade. He's been year in year out one of the best guys and been durable during that time. So I think Texans have the slight edge because of durability and just guys have a little bit more proven ground. but I mean, they're not too far behind the Rams. You got
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp, you got Puka, those are top guys. It will need to be a solid number 3 that comes in and makes some noise.
Mm-hmm.
Right? 'Cause I feel like the Texans have a solid 3, but whoever that number 3 can be for the Rams could really push them up. But I think it's a competitive room on both sides. But I'll give the Texans a slight edge.
A slight edge. I mean, listen, you do host a Texans podcast. We understand. You need to. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, listen. I want to get your perspective on something that's really interesting that's happening in LA right now. So, we'll get to another question about Stafford in a moment, but they have an interesting predicament. So, obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo, the PED suspension, out for the first 2 games. Stetson Bennett. Enter Stetson, who's improved during the preseason. Certainly had a better game against the Chargers than he did against the Cowboys. How do you see that shaking out? Do they end up bringing on a backup? Do they bring on Stetson and then let him go after 2 games? Like, how do you think that in your experience and what you've seen in the league, how does that shake out with? I guess what would you need to see from Stetson or would you need to see a big game from him in order for him to make that 53-man roster?
I think he needs to have a big game. I think week 1, throwing 4 interceptions, even though he had a game-winning pass, throwing those 4 picks, that was frustrating to see from a coaching standpoint, right? Because if you're a backup quarterback, if I'm the head coach, I have a backup quarterback in the game, God forbid something happens to Stafford, I need you to, number 1, not lose the game. Like, number 1, take care of the football. And what you did was you did not take care of the football in the first opportunity you had. Does that make sense? So for me, I would need somebody to be able to come in, take care of the football, somebody I trust. You can't lose the game for me. Get the ball to your playmakers. Give it to Puka. Give it to Cooper. Hand the ball off to Kyron. Hand it off to Blake. Make the easy plays for me, right? I'm not asking you to win the game. I ask you not lose the game. So for me, I need somebody I can trust. Throwing 4 picks in the game is hard for me to trust right now. I'm not saying he can't improve. Right? Not saying he's not going to be a good player or a decent backup, but if God forbid something happens the first 2 games and he's the guy, do I really trust him? So with this mass cut coming on the 27th, I wouldn't be surprised if McVay and others have eyes on other QBs around the league just in case they don't believe in Stetson.
Yeah, you mentioned that date. I want to get to that in a moment because I'm so curious to get your perspective as a professional. But let's get back to Stafford really quickly. So, and just news and notes for you guys listening. He did return to practice for individual drills. He was held out. He was dealing with some hamstring tightness. He was wearing a glove because he cut his thumb at practice. McVay, not concerned. The tone from my time at training camp, obviously they want to stick with Stafford. It's an interesting situation though in Los Angeles. They just readjusted his contract. He's 36 years old. He's entering his 16th season. Like you said, he seems to be sort of underrated in terms of his talent. How do you look at Stafford compared to, he's had an interesting few years, right? He was injured in 2022. They won the Super Bowl before that. And then last year, the guy went on a tear. How do you evaluate Stafford and how do you see him moving forward?
Great question. Number 1, I think he still has 4, 5, 6, 7 years left. I don't see anything slowing down in him at all. That's just me personally. Now, the biggest thing with Stafford, and it's always been kind of with Stafford, he has to stay healthy. You get older. When you get to 36s, the later 30s, it's harder for you to recover. It's harder for you to come back quicker than what you normally would do in your 20s, right? Even if you play the quarterback position, that's just what it is because of age. So for me, if he stays healthy, I see him playing a long time. I see him playing in his 40s. That's how good I think he is. He is in that range of a Tom Brady. He's in that range of as far as that can play longevity-wise, right? I think he can play for a long time. He understands the game. So it's just a matter of him staying healthy. So if he can stay healthy, great. I'll sign him again for a long-term deal. But if he cannot stay healthy, if he does have another injury year, like say this year, God forbid he gets hurt or the year after that, I may have to figure out, okay, do I want him here the next couple of years, right? What does that look like? Should I draft a guy? Should we trade? Should we go out in free agency and try to pick one up for competition? So health is everything. If he stays healthy, he's your guy for time to come. But if not, then you got some questions to answer.
Yeah. I mean, and Stafford's known as a tough guy. He's known as a competitor. In fact, actually, after McVay sat him during practice, he said he's really upset with me. because he sat him. And McVay actually turned that into a positive and said, I really appreciate the fact that this guy is so tough, that this guy is so competitive.
Yeah.
But, it is an interesting situation that Los Angeles had and has to deal with in the event their 36-year-old quarterback does get injured, because who can replace him? I mean, obviously they have Jimmy Garoppolo as a backup, but he's just no Matthew Stafford. And it's an interesting situation for both parties. I get both sides. I get Stafford's perspective. I get what the Rams are having to navigate. But having a quarterback, I imagine, as a former wide receiver, having a quarterback like Matthew Stafford, what makes him so special besides his toughness?
He has a touch on the ball. He can make any throw. He's how do I put this? He makes plays outside the pocket, right? So he's not going to get outside the pocket and try to run. He's going to keep outside the pocket, keep the play going, and look for his guys down the field. It's a great job keeping his eyes up. He doesn't get his guys killed. I've been a part of situations where, or I've seen situations where quarterbacks get guys killed. He is just a baller at all of the sense. He understands where you need to be. He communicates well with his receivers, and you can watch the game and see they're on the same page. The work is being put in where he can throw it blindfolded and know where exactly put the ball in the right spot and the receiver's going to be there. That's just timing. That's just work ethic. That's just time put in that you can't get in many other places. So he's one of the better quarterbacks. To me, he's top 4 and he's not number 4. He is one of the better quarterbacks in the league. And when you play with a guy that can make your team better, that makes everyone around you better, it elevates everybody's game.
Yeah, and you liken him to a Tom Brady because that was what he did, right? He elevated everybody in the locker room. Speaking of Tom Brady, let's go back to him again, because he also did, during that interview with Stephen A., he mentioned the defense, okay? He mentioned the Rams defense, and it's, Captain Obvious. He said this, quote, he said, they lost Aaron Donald. Nobody can replace him. That guy is a first ballot Hall of Famer, but they've drafted really well. And then he said they've got a really underrated defense, and that he thinks is going to be a team to watch. Yes, no doubt, replacing Aaron Donald is literally impossible. And then, of course, you also lose the defensive coordinator in Raheem Morris. Mm-hmm. If you're a guy in that locker room, or a fan in the stands, how concerned do you feel about the defense, and what do they need to do to sort of maybe compensate or overcompensate for the lack of number 99?
Well, I'll tell you what, when you lose 99 and Raheem Morris in the same year, that's tough. That's extremely tough. So if you're a fan and you're outside looking in, you should be some type of worry. That's just what it is. It's going to be a transition period, right? So whoever that new defensive coordinator is, his name slipped my mind, the new DC coming in, he has to establish his own culture. Right, he has to establish what he wants to bring, how he wants to do things. The biggest thing is to replace 99. You got to figure out how to get pressure from the inside. How do you get pressure? He was a rare breed where he could play tackle, play end, he could play 3 technique, he could play 0 technique if he wanted to. He could do whatever he wanted at defensive line and get pressure and stop the run and do it all. Right, there's not going to be one person that can do that, but one good thing about defensive linemen, you see it often, they rotate a lot on everything. Got guys coming in and out trying to stay fresh, because normally on the offensive line, they don't rotate at all. So those guys are getting tired. You have fresh D-line rushing the passer or stopping the run gap, wherever the case may be. So they define that rotation. Find a good 4, 5, 6 guys that can come in, contribute, do their job well, not get beat deep. Just understand what my assignment is. They can do that up front. They can have their shot at being good on the front line. Not saying you can ever make up for what 99 brings, right? I'm not saying that, but you do have young guys on that line that can do well, that can do their job. They know their assignment. You'll be in decent shape.
Yeah, I mean, and they drafted well. We don't know, and honestly, JB Long said something interesting. The fact that the 2 rookies in Braden and Jared, in the fact that they're in street clothes, lends itself to just how confident McVay is in what they're doing on the football field. He does not even want them to touch preseason, which again suggests McVay is trying to protect his guys. But the flip side of that, I guess, having a top 4 quarterback, a head coach like Sean McVay, and all of those weapons in the offensive, whether it's wide receiver or the 2 running backs that they have, Hopefully they'll score more points. They won't have to worry about, relying as much on their defense with number 99, no longer here. So,
Definitely the strength is on the offensive side, right? And
yeah.
again, he's top 4 and not number 4. Remember that. Top 4 and not number 4.
You said that. That's right. Duly noted. Very good point. You're right. Top 4. Well, okay, so here's another thing that's interesting. And this is a bit of something that, feels personal. If you've ever watched a Hard Knocks episode, you see the guys, and these are the moments that I really, tend to gravitate towards, because there's guys on the bubble. They're trying to make the roster cuts, or they're trying to make the 53-man roster and roster cuts, like you mentioned, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, August 27th. As someone who is still very close to the game, still close to the team, and as a player yourself, what for you is the hardest part for these guys that are, trying to make an impression, that are on the bubble?
Oh, you know what? I think this time of year, I think how they do things now is the hardest part, because it's one mass cut, right? And before,
Mm.
when I was playing, I'm aging myself. I'm not that old.
You're not.
They did cuts by a week, or I think it was after the second week, and then the third week, then the fourth week. So it was stages to getting cut. Now it's just one mass cut. So I feel bad, because now, if you didn't have a stellar preseason, if you didn't have a Jordan type preseason, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was having an outstanding preseason so far, you may not get noticed, because there's so many guys getting cut at one time. That's the hardest part now. It used to be staged, where it was one cut, two cut, maybe three cut. Now it's massive cuts, so thousands of guys, or whatever number it is, are getting cut at one time. You may fall up under the radar, and it'll be hard for you to get back on. Right. The good thing about that is, some teams may be having an eye on certain people, right, and they may get over,
Mm-hmm.
and they can snag those guys here and there. But it's going to be tough for those guys, man. If you're not um, really playing well in the preseason, really getting that opportunity to play well, whether it's on special teams, whether it's on the joint practices, whether it's offense or defense, it's going to be hard for you to get on a team. So that's what I feel most when that time comes. It's always a hard day when that Grim Reaper's around the corner, knocking on that door, or hey, I need your playbook or your iPad. You got to turn it in. That's always a tough day. But the dream's not over. The dream's not over. It just pause for a minute, and then, hopefully they can get back going soon.
Is there a personal anecdote or a story you can tell us, whether it's about you or someone close to you? I mean, because for me, like I said, I watch those Hard Knocks episodes because I want to know who the players are off the gridiron. I want to see, who their families, who those families are, and have an understanding of the sacrifice. And really, at the end of the day, I think we as a fan base watched those shows hopefully as a way to honor what you guys do professionally, because it's a lifelong dream, and it is a tough physical sport, and it's not easy, and it's in front of millions of fans.
It's in front of millions of fans. I actually had the opportunity to be on Hard Knocks for a little bit, 2015, when they came to the Texans, so that was pretty cool. And the big, I guess, underdog for us was Charles James, and defensive back, and he actually played a little running back in that year. He did everything he could to make the team. He was running down on kickoffs, running down on being a gunner on punts. He was playing defensive back, corner. They put him at running back, and he caught a sweep and took it to the house. I'll never forget that moment. But he did everything he could. He was an undrafted guy. He did everything he could to make the team, and he made the team. And that's the type of story you want, right? That everybody's path to success is different. I think people get caught up in, if I don't go first round or if I don't get drafted. No, everybody's path to success is different. It's going to look different, right? Another one's Victor Cruz. He didn't get much playing time in the preseason to that last game. That's 3 touchdowns versus the Jets, and he's now he's a sauce and dancing king. You know what I mean? He made a huge name for himself, big contract and all. So it's so many stories, so many good things come from cut day like this, right? So many opportunities come, so many underdog stories here. So there's a lot of good stuff that comes from it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I love the underdog story. And, The Rams are a great example of that because they bet on guys that are in the 5th or 6th round, right? Jordan Whittington is a great example of that, 6th round draft pick and preseason star. It'll be interesting to see too this last week, guys on the roster, who's getting playing time or who McVay decides to sit, right? If he sits Whittington, he's a no-brainer, obviously. So it'll be interesting. I'm going to let you go soon. But before I let you go really quickly, season opener against the Lions. That's going to be a fun one. It's a rematch. How do you see that game going?
Ooh, who's home?
It's on the road for the Rams.
It's on the road, so it's in
Detroit.
It's rematch from the playoffs. Ooh, it's always fun. That Goff and Stafford story is always fun to me.
I know.
It's juicy. It's
so juicy.
I would give it. I think I don't know what the line is, and I'm not a huge betting guy, but I've been paying attention more to the line. I'm trying to learn, right? I'm trying to learn about the line and the minuses and the pluses. But if I had to guess, opening day, just everybody's being more on the healthy side, I would give it to the Rams in a close fight. Just because I feel like they want the rematch because they want some get back from losing to the Lions in the playoffs. If that makes sense? Stafford's going to come ready to go. He's going to his home place again. He's not going to lose twice. I just don't see him losing twice there. But it's going to be a great matchup. Those two teams should be fighting in the NFC they favored by 3.5. The Lions are favored by 3.5. So that might be something to look into. But I'll give it to the Rams in a close one for sure.
It feels like it could lean that way. There's so much in favor of the Rams. Like you said, they're hungry for it. The Stafford Goff dynamic is so juicy, like you said. It's going to be I think it's Sunday night football. So it's going to be an amazing season opener for Rams fans to get to watch. And hopefully, get a little vengeance at the same time. Real quick, will the Rams see the postseason, you think? They made it last year.
For sure. Now, I don't know what seed, but I do believe they'll be in the playoffs and be in the mix. It all depends on health, like we talked about, right? But they're too good of an offense not to be in the mix, right? And their defense will grow. I think they're a little younger on that spot, especially the defensive line. Some guys from Florida State coming in. But if the offense can hold the barrel, if the offense can get things rolling and score points and put their defense in good position, I think they'll be in somewhere between a 10-11 win range and be solid in the playoffs and be a threat for sure.
Yeah. You can't discount the Rams. Certainly Tom Brady isn't, and neither is Cecil Shorts III. Cecil, thank you for making the time. We had a little snafu in the beginning, but we stayed the course. We made it work, and you're an amazing soul. I can't wait to hopefully get to interview again. Have fun. Game day. You are the game day host. How can people follow you and learn more about you and just sort of follow along the ride?
Oh, yeah. So social media, I think Twitter is C Shorts, C Shorts III on Instagram is Cecil Shorts III. Please follow. We got a Bleav in Texans podcast. You can subscribe to that, keep up with the Texans, what's going on. And that's it.
Awesome. All right. Well, good luck this weekend. Can't wait to watch. Thanks again, Cecil. Appreciate you.
No problem. Thank you.